Welcome to another special edition of Litter Media Live. I'm Dan Ramey, and in studio with us, a Chillicothe native. He wandered off to Texas for a while and has been around the world as well, but he's back with us thanks to his class reunion. Dave Burchett, thank you for coming in today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been stalking you on social media for a while, so I know you.
And we have been looking forward to this opportunity to talk about his career. It is a storied career. We'll get into it in just a moment, but first, these words from Classic Brands. Are you looking for a beer that satisfies your thirst and love of country? Armed Forces Brewing Company brews beer for patriots. Celebrate freedom with every sip. Armed Forces Brewing Company. Freedom never tasted so good. Class of 1971 at Chillicothe High School, and you're on Eastern Avenue here in our studio today. This building was, you probably watched it being built as a kid.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and I worked just down the street on Eastern Avenue at one point at WCHI, so I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yes, the studio is still there. However, it's more along the lines of a transmitter site these days, more than anything. But there was a time when the power was out downtown and all the stations were off except for that one.
Wow.
Because it's down here, not downtown.
Right.
So what took you from Ohio?
Well, it was actually an interesting process. I love being a disc jockey at WCHI. It was so much fun. I loved it. But I wasn't sure that's where I wanted. You know what? I tell you, the Harry Chapin song that came out, WOLD.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, kind of made me think, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Be bouncing all around to different stations. So started looking into what's next to my life. And it was a spiritual transformation when I really got dedicated to my faith. I joined Athletes in Action of Campus Crusade, and they had the sports teams that toured that back then in the 70s were amazing. The Athletes in Action teams would play the number one team in the country and beat them, played the Russians. And so I started doing play-by-play and television for play-by-play for Athletes in Action. And probably my main claim to fame was my first color analyst for Athletes in Action on their first television game was John Wooden.
Is that right?
I just sat there with my mouth open. I'm sitting next to a Hall of Fame coach and player, actually. And it was just amazing. So that was a wonderful time. But then, after a while, that support raising, that was difficult. So when the Dallas Mavericks started in 1980, my boss with Athletes in Action came as a business manager for them, and he brought me with him to Dallas. And my wife, who is in the studio audience today, we moved to Dallas thinking, okay, 3 years maybe in Texas. We'll kind of think about it. We're now 40 plus. Mm-hmm. So,
in fact, I was having a conversation with your wife just a moment ago, and I said, "How did you two meet?" And well, she said that you met in Colorado. She's from Florida. You're from Ohio, and you've lived in Texas. So you're all over the place.
Yeah. Plus, we were in California for a while. So we tried to see the whole country.
Yeah. Campus Crusade. Let's talk about that because I was a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Oh, yeah.
And
great.
Which is huge today. Explain, if you would, what it was like to be in the 1970s. We had the Jesus Revolution going on at that time. And you're coming off of Woodstock and everything, and it's like suddenly we see one side of life that you could go, but there's another that's full of faith.
Yeah. Campus Crusade had an enormous impact in our culture at that point because, again, I just feel like God kind of brought that into the forefront because the Jesus Revolution was happening. And we talk about it. Did you see the movie?
Yes.
It was awesome. And as I looked at that, I think, wow, that church brought in people that were messed up in all kinds of ways and loved them and shared the gospel with them. And look what happened. Maybe we need to learn from that. But being a part of Crusade and Athletes in Action was amazing, and it was a game changer for me. It really gave me my foundation of faith because, I struggled a little bit younger in my journey, my spiritual journey. So that really helped. And I think when you look at people in my generation, how did you come to faith? And boy, a lot of people will say Campus Crusade or Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Those two things. So it was a privilege to be a part of that.
Yeah. And to be able to play sports or participate in sports
Exactly.
and still worship the Lord as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things we did with Athletes in Action, we would go around and play the best teams in the country, and it was awesome for them because they could play a great team and it didn't count against the record. Yeah. So it worked really well. But the deal was Athletes in Action at halftime would do a gospel presentation. Every school went into the locker room to plan for the second half except for one. The infamous Jerry Tarkanian made his team sit on the bench and hear the gospel presentation. Only one in my entire career. Isn't that interesting?
Right?
Because he had such a reputation of being this guy that was...
Las Vegas and the whole deal.
Yeah, not a great guy, but he was the one that made his team hear it. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. Some coaches are working with John Wooden, you probably know this, they are well-rounded as far as making sure you learn more than the books.
Yeah, yeah. I tell you a John Wooden story that was so impressive to me because, I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, so John Wooden flew down to meet with us before the first game. And so, we're driving like this old beat-up Toyota, tiny car back then. So two of us pick up John Wooden at the airport in this old beat-up car. I start to climb in the back seat. He goes, no. Sir? He says, no, you're tall. He said, I'll get in the back seat. You get in the front. I go, no, coach. And he goes, no, I insist. So John Wooden, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame player, crawls in the back seat of this beat-up car so that I would sit in the front. So I tell people that all the time, so they'll let me ride in the front.
Well, a guy who's recruited the likes of Bill Walton and Lou Alcindor and the whole deal, right. He knows you need the leg room, right?
Exactly.
Even in a Toyota.
What a quality man he was. So just a humble, kind man.
You transitioned into baseball. And for folks who are not aware, 37 years as the director of Texas Rangers broadcasts. Right. Many of us watch the Reds or the Indians, the Guardians now.
Guardians, yes.
We see some of what they show us, the behind-the-scenes stuff. You were one of those guys that was behind the scenes but really directing the whole broadcast.
Yeah, I started out with the Mavericks when I started doing directing for them, but then an opportunity came up I had worked with the Mavericks play-by-play guy, so he knew me and trusted me, and when the Rangers job came open, he recommended me. Now, here's an interesting truth. I had never directed a baseball game. Mm-hmm. Whoa. So you talk about anxiety and just trusting God in a situation, but I went and survived and just grew to love it, worked with announcers, Merle Harmon, Steve Busby, announcers that just taught me the game. I would just sit and they would teach me the game. And so I learned how to tell the stories. That's when the industry changed. It was more about numbers and analytics and so forth. I think it should be about storytelling and just presenting the game. And so it kind of went past where I was, but it was an amazing experience for a lot of years. And, a lot of bad Ranger teams, but we also had some moments that were special. I got to do Nolan Ryan's 6th no-hitter. Mm-hmm. Got to do his 300th win. I got to direct Adrian Beltre and Pudge Rodriguez and some Rafael Palmeiro, just star players.
And you did this during summertime with baseball. It's the hottest in America.
Yes, that's why they moved from the beautiful stadium they were in to the Dome Stadium. But right. Yeah, it was a challenge. But they used to play in wool uniforms, right? In Chicago and St. Louis and Cincinnati when it was hot and humid. So maybe we just weren't tough enough.
That could be. As a director, of course, every team has a head coach, and then the head coach doles out assignments to his assistants. As a TV director, how many people do you have on your staff that are manning all these cameras? Because I imagine there's 18 to 20 cameras that are around the stadiums.
Yeah, well, it depends. Starting out, I would have 4 to 5 cameras back in the day, but by the time I got deeper into my career, it was about a 15-camera show.
Is that right?
And we would have 8 replay sources normally, and then a super slow-mo on many of the shows. And basically my philosophy was I wanted to create a team atmosphere. Some directors came in and said, this is my show. You're going to do it exactly the way I want to. What I tried to do was to come in and say, this is the basic format I need. You have certain assignments that I need for you to do, but I want you to have creative freedom in the show. I wanted them to have some ownership in the show and to feel like they were a part of it. And if a mistake was made, it wasn't them, it was all of us. So you just wanted to create a team atmosphere where everybody was a part of it. And, I just remember some producer screaming at a guy saying, you are doing this to me. And no, it's not about me. This is about the viewer, and this is about us doing the show. So that was, by creating that, it made it so much fun. And I was blessed with wonderful relationships all over the country. And love going to Cleveland to do the Guardians, as you said, and a lot of great friends up there. Yeah. And actually, one of the funniest moments of my career happened in Cleveland. I had a camera guy there, and this was back when I didn't have as many cameras. And Jose Canseco was playing in the outfield, and my center field camera guy had been bugging me for the entire series, good-naturedly. Hey, you got to isolate me, because we didn't have a lot of replay sources, maybe only 2 replay machines. You got to isolate my camera. And I'm going, well, yeah, but we only have 2 replays. We've got to make sure we have this and this. But no, I'm telling you, I'm getting great stuff. You got to isolate me. And finally, just to make it fun, I said to the crew, okay, we're going to ISO Brian's camera just so he'll be quiet. You know what happened? The next inning, the ball was hit out into right field, bounced off of Jose Canseco's head and over the fence.
I remember that
one
shot,
of the most memorable moments in baseball history. And it was the perfect angle with that center field camera coming right at him, hits off his head. He goes over, he sees the center fielder bent over laughing at him. And it was the most, and I get this credit for this amazing shot. And I go, oh yeah, it was just genius on my part.
You did make the final call, right?
I guess, but it was just like, wow. And that actually opened a moment for me is when, sometimes listen to your crew and they have insights because I'm in a truck and they're on the field. So they're seeing things I'm not seeing.
I know many of the events I've been to during my career, going to Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you see all the trucks that are all there. Or if it's a big event like the Super Bowl or like you've participated in the Olympic Games, how is it that you can bring everything that's happening inside these different settings, and you're in your truck, and you're just trying to piece it together for the viewing enjoyment for someone at their home?
Well, when you step into a TV truck, and I know my wife and my friends have stepped in there, it looks like chaos to them.
Yeah, it does.
But everybody has their assignments, and, we're all hearing each other, talking to each other, and, the most important person, as you know, is a technical director that pushes the correct buttons, no matter what you say,
right,
as a director. So you just have all these people that if you can create that team atmosphere and they're really focused and connected, it really becomes very easy to do these shows. And I loved it. I miss my crew. I don't miss the grind, but I miss my crew.
Yeah. Walking into a truck like that is almost like stepping into a pilot's cockpit. Mm-hmm. Seeing all these bells and whistles and thinking, what do they do?
Yeah.
But he knows, or she knows, what everything does.
Yeah, and it's just I just wanted to tell the story. That was the whole thing. Is I didn't ever want to, to try and what I tried to do and what I told my crew to do was imagine you're sitting at home on the couch and you're watching this event. What do you want to see? And too many times, producers and directors will make it about what they want to do. Yeah. Instead of what that person at home wants to see. And so I think that was part of what blessed me is I think people would tell me at, in my church and so forth, I didn't direct every game because it was too much. So I'd do maybe 110 out of 155 games that were televised. And they go, we can tell within one inning if you're directing or not, just by the style of and I'm getting shots of families and kids and that kind of thing. So that's what I loved.
Yeah. I know when Matt Litter reached out to me about doing this gig, and I said to him in our interview, I said, you want me to leave 37 years of what I know, which is radio, and go into something I don't know in video? And he says, Yeah. And once I got into the editing side of this, I thought, I've been training for this my whole life. I've been watching TV ever since I could remember,
right.
And you start picking up things and starting to display those as you have seen them. And it's a creative opportunity.
It is.
You're like a band director.
Exactly. And it's so much fun to, like you said, to be able to bring all those elements together and to bring everyone. It's like, this talented audio guy that you're working with me. It's just great to have a team that is fun to work with.
Now, as a viewer, how frustrating is it for you to sit and watch a production and it's like, why didn't they show this out? Or how did they miss that shot?
I try not to do that, but I still every once in a while get triggered, to be honest with you. And a lot of times I will see things that will happen where like a camera will swish or they'll do a bad cut and I'll go, oh, did you see that? And everybody goes, no, what? What are you talking about?
Because you see what everyone else takes for granted.
Can I tell you what my biggest trigger moment in recent memory was? Last year's Super Bowl when Kansas City had the winning touchdown and the first shot was Taylor Swift instead of the player that scored the touchdown, the coach or the teammates. That made me crazy.
Goes back to the analytics of today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Numbers. Exactly.
Things change.
Yeah.
Now that you're retired, you've had time to reflect back on a career. You've met so many different people. You've worked with all sorts of different clients, or not clients, but what's the word I'm looking for? Talent. See, this is why I'm in Chillicothe and not in New York.
Stop it.
But you've had the opportunity to work with so many different people. What stands out to you most? If you had like a top 5,
oh wow,
when you kick back.
Oh, that's a good question.
I bring this up because I saw one of his Facebook posts during the Olympic Games this summer, and I thought, man, he remembers a lot of neat things that he participated in.
I think the moments that really mean the most to me is, I shared the one of when I was at WCHI recently, and the general manager there graciously let me do my own generated sports director position. Didn't pay me any extra money, but I went to spring training again at my own expense and asked Pete Rose at spring training if I could do an interview. He said, how long? And I said, 30 minutes. And his eyes he looked at me and he kind of got that grin on his face. He goes, sure. So he talked to me for 30 minutes, Pete Rose, for a 1,000-watt daytimer radio station. And then at the end said, I want you viewers to know that Dave didn't have any notes. He'd done his homework and memorized all of his questions. So moments like that are the ones. If I did, a top 5, I'd have to go back. The Nolan Ryan 6th no-hitter came out of nowhere. And just as the crew, as we got into it, and you're going, okay, guys, focus. We are not making a mistake. He's about to make history. This is going to be in the Hall of Fame. And just those moments of teamwork. We had one Texas high school football championship. I actually wrote a book about the coach called Between the White Lines, and he had a serious lung disease, and they didn't expect him to be still alive for the second championship game. And I got to do that game, and they won their second straight championship. And the post-game interview with him where he shared his faith and his story, and 5 million people saw that interview on social media of him saying and talking about, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, the announcer said, well, how do you feel about it? He said, oh, this is not about me. He said, I told the kids, I appreciate you wanting to win this for me, but this is for you. He said, because I know that if I've done things right, a piece of me will be in your heart forever. And that stayed in me that will stay in me forever, that we don't have to get credit. If you do it right, a piece of you will stay in that person forever.
Yeah. You have directed so many opportunities for people like us to see and make memories from the athletes that we've watched, the performances that we've seen, whichever the case may be. Do you ever have those athletes come back and say, hey, thanks for making me look good? I have a feeling there's a bit of a disconnect there.
guys, no, not really. Yeah. When they come back is after they retire and they want to be an announcer. Then all of a sudden they're very nice and they're very appreciative. And I've worked with Mark McLemore is a wonderfully kind guy that now does Rangers announcing. Steve Busby, Tom Grieve, just incredibly kind guys. I won't mention a name here, but when we first started flying with the team, players didn't want us. Yeah. Boy, did they not want us. And one particular player in the 90s really didn't want us. And so anytime if we'd be back one row too far, he'd come up and cuss at us and yell at us and tell us to get out of there, and da-da-da-da-da. And so we just have to sit there and take it. But the next day, that player made an error, and there were 6 replays of his error. So, sometimes you have a chance.
A chance to kind of that'll dig in without saying anything.
Exactly.
You've had your class reunion this weekend. What's it like to get back together with these folks?
Well, the class of 71, this was actually, we did our 50th like 3 years ago. But we came up with the idea of this is the year the class of 71 turns 71. So let's have a birthday celebration.
Sure.
So we did that, and over 50 people showed up. And we just all feel like, and classes have their own personalities, but our class had great unity, and we had great friendship, and there's still relationships that are deep. Yeah. After 50-something years, and people I haven't seen in 50 years, I still feel a kindness toward them. And so it's just a lot of fun. And if people can stay connected, it's fun to go back over those memories. Yeah. It really is.
My wife did not go to school with me, and I have that relationship with a lot of my classmates, and she doesn't understand it often. But they have accepted her as if she went to school with us.
Yeah.
And it just changes everything.
Well, same thing. They're very kind to my wife, and they actually even say nice things about me just because they feel an obligation to, probably. But we talked earlier about my time at Chillicothe in 1971, and Coach Tom Cuppett came in when I was a freshman or sophomore.
Yeah, 69, I think, was his first year.
So I would have been like a sophomore. And he came in, and wow, what an impact he had in my life. Yeah. Just an amazing coach. He had that incredible ability to push you and to really coach you up, but also affirm you when you needed to be affirmed, and and know when to come in, when to kick your backside, but when to come around and hug you, put his arm around you. And he was such an amazing influence in my life. And I remember having a chance to go back after he had retired with 2 of my sons who were playing basketball at the time, visiting him at his house and telling him how much he meant in my life, and him sitting there and tears running down his cheek. And I'm going, if you saw Tom Cuppett at times, you'd think he'd be the last guy that would sit there and cry. But it was just such a special moment, and he's amazing.
For those who got to know him, though, man, he was a teddy bear.
Yes.
And I remember our last phone conversation. Super guy.
Yeah.
Really was.
Yeah.
So, by the way, bringing that up, December 13th, they'll be dedicating the floor to Thomas Cuppett Court, and that'll take place against the Hillsborough Indians, who will be here in Chillicothe for that.
So I know you're in the Cavalier Sports Hall of Fame. I think I averaged 4 points. Am I a candidate, do you think? A few more rebounds than that.
Well, when I opened up the letter that said you are going into the hall, I'm thinking, wait, I've never shot a basket. I've never scored a touchdown. I've not worked for the school system. But how is this possible? And it was like, well, Rule 13, C, your contributions.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my plaque is right up next to the boys' bathroom entrance when you go to.
Perfect. That's perfect.
Why not, right?
That's perfect. That's funny.
So you finally get in there. We'll see what we can do about that.
Oh, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No.
But certainly the distinguished alumni, I would think you'd have a shot there. Yeah.
Again, I'm just blessed to have been a part of all of this.
Have you been back to the school recently?
No, I haven't. So I wish I could come back for that dedication. I don't think I can, but I wish I could.
We'll see if we can do something online, some live streaming of some sort.
That'd be great. I did put my 2 cents in on putting my voice forward that I hoped that would be done. So
very good.
yeah.
Anything we've missed? I'm sure there's a lot.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I just feel very blessed to have grown up in this town. I still love it. Love my school. Loved being a part of WCHI. They gave me so much freedom. I still can't believe that they let me do silly, fun things, and so it was just such a great experience early in my life. So yeah, I feel very blessed.
Before we wrap up,
Yeah.
Chillicothe is a special place. Mm-hmm. I'm sure when you have traveled, people might ask you where you're from, and some probably have heard of Chillicothe. What do you tell them about the town?
Well, I tell them that we were the first capital of Ohio, and we got robbed by Columbus. So, no, I like to talk about the history and the feeling of this area, that there's I think a lot of times they kind of lump us into the rest of Ohio. There's just the location of Chillicothe kind of being in the hilly, more southern area. It's beautiful. It's the friendships here, the relationships, the history we have here. It's just a special place. So, and I tell them where the name came from and all that. So.
Yeah. And now you can throw in, we're part of the World Heritage Inscription.
I know.
So
that's impressive.
Who'd have thought, right?
That's very impressive. Yeah.
Dave, it's been great to catch up with you.
Oh, I love it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I feel like I've known him forever, but this is our first meeting today. So thank you again for what your career has been like and sharing with us here today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sure thing. And thank you for watching as well. And to our studio audience who's sitting up, it's his darling bride and also his lovely sister as well. I'm Dan Ramey. Thanks for watching this edition of Litter Media Live.